Welcome to the ICSS Sunday Morning Marxist Forum. A reminder before we start, we are recording our presentations and the following discussions, and we are posting these for our wider audience. The videos will be available on our channel, ICSS Marxist, and our website, icssmarx.org, in the next couple of days. We have also started sharing our videos on Rumble for a backup, and I'll post all the links later in our chat today. Please also visit our website, icssmarx.org, to view the past programs, sign up to receive weekly notification emails for upcoming programs, see the schedules, contact us, or to donate to run this educational forum. I would also like to thank those who have and still continue to support us through their valuable donations. My name is Mehmet Bayram, and I will be hosting this session on Sunday, July the 27th, 2025, and I'm running this from Turkey. So if I disappear, it will be because of power shortages, which happened to me yesterday on a presentation. For over 15 years, ICSS Sunday Morning Marxist Forum programs have been a platform for diverse presentations on various topics. The meeting is a comradely forum for political discourse and debate. The opinions expressed here are those of the participants, and they do not necessarily represent those of ICSS. However, we are united in our respect for the work of Karl Marx, and we believe that his work remains relevant today. Our understanding is taken from Karl Marx's 11th thesis on Fürwahr, which says the philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. Our guest today is Aziz Şah. Aziz was born in 1987 in the part of Cyprus that is occupied by Turkey, and he studied sociology in Germany. He writes for Avrupa, Africa, Europe, Africa newspapers that publish in Turkish in the occupied part of Cyprus and has been attacked with guns and bombs many times and stoned by settlers. He is part of the Union of Cypriots and the Pan-Cyprian Freedom Movement, which are fighting for the liberation of Cyprus. Before we go to Aziz, since this is a brand new issue for us, we have not had anything on Cyprus before. So I would like to, Aziz and I talked about this, I would like to give a very brief introduction. Cyprus geographically sits right in the middle of Mediterranean, where politically it has access to and is in a position to control the Middle East and the entire East Mediterranean region. For this reason alone, it has been central to imperialist domination and has been an unsinkable battleship for the imperialists. Its location is perfect for having electronic listening posts to monitor the Soviet Union in the past, now Russia, Iran, many Arab countries, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Greece, and the Greek islands. The British officially secured the island from the old Ottomans, the new Turkish Republic, with the Lausanne Treaty in 1923. Cyprus officially became a British colony. However, the island became independent in 1960 from British rule. By this time, the changes in imperialism were happening, as the methods of colonialism were making way for far cheaper, safer, more profitable, and more sinister imperialist methods of exploitation called neocolonialism. Before the independence in 1960 from the British, the Greek nationalist Enosis movement to integrate Cyprus into Greece from British colonialism was underway. Guerrilla tactics by the independence movement took a heavy toll on the British, who were controlling the island. Hundreds of bombs and sabotage actions were targeting the British colonial rule, its military bases, planes, and installations. This move was mostly carried out by the Greek integration Enosis members. Turkish Cypriots, on the other hand, were leaning more towards the separation of the island along ethnic lines to secure a part of the island, as the British were encouraging ethnic animosity between the Greek and Turkish ethnicities that resided there. With the active support of British, many atrocities from both sides escalated. The star imperialist Britain of the 1940s, 50s had started to see the rising costs and expenses that came with the old colonialism. Just like today's US imperialism trying to cut the cost of running an empire, Britain also had to cut the operational costs as it could no longer maintain its presence in Suez, Jordan, Egypt, etc. The solution would be neocolonialism. That is, let the natives rule and fight it out among themselves while Britain controlled the most important aspects of the exploitation. But how to do it was the question. Britain faced two solutions, to control the whole island or to let the security and small stuff be handled by the natives and retreat to its military bases with nearly unlimited powers. The decision finally came on the side of the neocolonial methods, that is to grant independence to a subservient rule, but control the region from its nuclear-capable military bases strategically situated in large areas of Cyprus. While the plan worked in general, the native Greek and Turkish Cypriots started atrocities, mass murders, and land grabs among themselves. The British retreated to their bases, but with the control of the region from their now much modern listening posts and RAF, that's the Royal Air Force units situated in these bases. However, as happened to the most well laid out plans, this too started to falter. Because British imperialism was in decline and a new sheriff was in town, the new force, the new rising imperialism, didn't come to the island with military force to take it away from the old declining Britain. No. As it did in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, it came with the message of freedom, independence, and self-rule to get the old colonies away from their former owners, to pull them into the sphere of influence and to control and exploit them, mostly and at first by using the market forces and the power of moral leadership. Britain didn't have much to say. It bowed its head as the second fiddle, accepted this inferior position behind the US, and allowed the new, the young, the more powerful force to push it to the side and take control. So today you will hear the history of not only the external imposed animosity between two people of the island who have been living together for thousands of years, but also the changes we experienced in imperialism and the change of ownership between imperialist powers. So with this introduction, I'd like to give the mic to Aziz and let him tell the rest of the story. So Aziz, go ahead, please.
Why Cyprus matters. I am here as a journalist from the part of Cyprus that has been under Turkish occupation since 1974. Turkey has occupied 37% of the sovereign territory of the Republic of Cyprus. Today, I will give you a brief overview of the last 200 years of history on the island of Cyprus, located at the intersection of three continents. I will focus on the last 50 years. Without overwhelming you with details, I will try to reflect how the turning points in the world history have shaped the history of an island in the Mediterranean. The island of Cyprus is at the intersection of three continents. It is located in the Eastern Mediterranean, north of Africa, and west of Asia. This situation makes Cyprus both a transit and conflict point of colonizers and dispensable battleground for the oppressed. Why does Cyprus matter? This alone is sufficient. Today, there are 40,000 Turkish soldiers, the US, French, and British bases in Cyprus. Since the Suez War, Cyprus has been used as a base by imperialists in all wars in the region. In the last quarter century, the bases in Cyprus were used in the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Libya, against the resistance in Yemen, and during the genocide in Gaza. In the debate in the United Kingdom Parliament on Cyprus held 28 July 54, the Minister of State for Colonial Affairs, Henry Hopkinson, stated repeatedly that the question of independence didn't arise in the case of Cyprus. He explained that nothing less than continued sovereignty over this island can enable Britain to carry out her strategic obligations to Europe, the Mediterranean, and the Middle East. Hopkinson's statement that there are regions within the British Commonwealth which, due to their special circumstances, should never expect to become fully independent, explains Cyprus' position at the intersection of three continents and its role in imperialist plans. Cyprus' lack of independence means that it is used by imperialism as an unsinkable aircraft carrier against oppressed nations. That's why Cyprus matters. Let's start with a general chronology. The island of Cyprus was conquered by Ottomans in 1571 and leased to British in 1878. Following Second World War, the global decolonization process, coupled with the anti-colonial guerrilla struggle between 1955 and 59, led to its establishment of the Republic in 1960. From 1964 onwards, NATO's plan to dismantle the Republic of Cyprus was put into action. In 1974, Cyprus was invaded by Turkey. If I were to provide a brief historical background, Cyprus spent the last 200 years under Ottoman, British, and Turkish occupation. For ease of understanding, I will mention three turning points: 1821, 1931, and 1974. We can trace the modern history of Cyprus back to the French Revolution. The 1821 Greek Revolution, whose roots trace back to the French Revolution, sparked a struggle in Cyprus that would last for approximately 150 years. In July 1821, the Ottomans launched a massacre against Orthodox Christians in Cyprus to take revenge for the Greek Revolution of 1821. This marked the beginning of struggle that would last for 150 years. The name of this struggle was Enosis, the unification of Cyprus with Greece. Opposing Enosis was the plan to divide Cyprus, devised by British colonialists and implemented by Turkey. The Ottoman Empire's campaign of looting and terror against Orthodox Christians in Cyprus in July 1821 continued to have an impact for many years. In 1831, Christian and Muslim Cypriots rebelled against Ottoman taxes and moneylenders. The island-wide uprising organized in 1833 were a pan-Cyprian revolt aimed at ending Ottoman rule. The uprising against the Ottomans that began in 1833 was repeated 100 years later in 1931 against British colonialism in the context of the 1929 economic depression. What remained unchanged in Cyprus from the 1831 uprising against Ottomans to the 1931 uprising against British colonialism was that the struggle against the taxes and usury formed the basis of the Cypriot struggle for national identity. Aware of the situation, British colonialism implemented a divide and rule policy after leasing the island from the Ottomans in 1878. In 1878, when Britain leased the island from the Ottoman Empire, it implemented a divide and rule strategy from the outset, replacing the Ottoman religious-based categorization of identities with an ethnic tribal framework. Muslims were now labeled as Turks and Orthodox Christians as Greeks. And so British colonialism created the Turks and Greeks, thereby inventing the so-called Cyprus problem. After the British colonial governor's residence was set on fire during the 1931 uprising, Britain established a new framework to extend its stay in Cyprus. In a 1936 report to London, British colonial governor Richard Palmer stated, in order to have ease in the future on the island, we have to continue the administration on the basis of districts, divide and rule. The framework established by British colonial governor in 1936 formed the basis for the United Nations plans to resolve the Cyprus issue in the so-called peace talks after the Turkish invasion in 1974. As the governor said, on the basis of districts, divide and rule. Now let's jump forward in time. In the post-World War decolonization process, Cypriots gained their republic through a guerrilla struggle between 55 and 59. But the new republic was neo-colonial in nature. Its constitution was written in French and English by 3 foreigners. Under the new order, Turkey, Greece, and Britain became guarantor countries. What are they guaranteeing? The constitutional unity and territorial integrity of the Republic of Cyprus. And ultimately, these 3 states worked on behalf of NATO after 1964 to dismantle the constitution they had guaranteed, divide Cyprus, and eliminate its territorial integrity. They tried repeatedly, waited for the right moment, and finally succeed in 1974. When the Republic of Cyprus was established in 1960, it was offered membership in NATO. However, President Makarios refused because Cyprus had been part of the non-alignment movement since the Bandung Conference. Cyprus was one of the founding members of non-alignment movement after the gaining independence in 1960. It stood with nations fighting for liberation in the era of anti-colonial struggles. For this reason, Makarios began to be referred to as the Castro of the Mediterranean by US imperialism. This was sufficient for Cyprus to become a target of the US. In his historic speech at the General Assembly of the United Nations, held on 11 December 1964, Che Guevara spoke about some of these activities, saying, peaceful coexistence has also been brutally put to the test in Cyprus due to pressures from the Turkish government and NATO. It is precisely for the reason that US imperialism first devised the Acheson Plan in 1964 to destroy the Republic of Cyprus. The plan proposed that Cyprus be divided between Turkey and Greece. When the plan was rejected by Cyprus, US President Johnson said to the Greek ambassador, I don't give a damn about your parliament or your constitution. America is an elephant. Cyprus is a mosquito. Greece is also a mosquito. If this mosquito continues to bite the elephant will send them to the hell with a blow from its trunk. Less than a year after this conversation, on 15 July 1965, Yorgos Papandreou was overthrown in a coup. Then Greece entered a cycle of coup, with another coup taken place in 1967. Then in November 73, an uprising against the colonials junta began at the Polytechnic University in Athens. A week after the uprising, on 25 November, another coup took place. There are two more dates I can highlight: 1948 and 1958. In 1948, the Cypriot working class, representing all ethnic backgrounds, staged a historic 125-day strike against the US company, Cyprus Mine Corporations. Similarly, in 1958, the Cypriot working class of all ethnic origins celebrated May Day together. These two dates serve as warning to imperialism. Policies are developed to divide the working class along ethnic lines. This period marks the implementation of the Truman Doctrine by US imperialism. In 1947, under the Truman Doctrine, Turkey and Greece was positioned as bulwarks against communism and admitted to NATO in 1952. Within this framework, various paramilitary terrorist organizations were established from 1958 onwards, first to divide the working class and then to divide Cyprus on ethnic grounds. The terrorist organization established between 1958 and 1974 created the conditions for the NATO invasion that took place in 1974. In 1967, the US-backed military junta seized power in Greece. The right-wing military dictatorship helped create the paramilitary EOKA-B organization in Cyprus against the Makarios leadership that was perceived as a problem for the West. In 1971, Greece and Turkey formulated and agreed upon a plan against non-allied Cyprus at the NATO Foreign Ministers meeting in Lisbon. The plan made in Lisbon was put into action in 1974. On 15 July 74, Greece organized a coup d'etat in Cyprus with the help of the EOKA organization. Right after the coup, Turkey started its first invasion of Cyprus on 20 July 1974. After the occupation, during the After the occupation, during the Geneva conferences that aimed at resolving the situation in Cyprus, Turkey demanded that the Cypriot government accept its plan for an apartheid, so-called federal state, and population transfer. According to White House records on 13 August 74, Henry Kissinger said, there is no American reason why the Turks shouldn't have 1/3 of Cyprus. US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger told the Cypriot government, give 30% of Cyprus to Turkey and we will stop the Turkish army. Unable to get positive feedback for its demand in Geneva, Turkey started second invasion on 14 August 74. In 1936, the British colonial governor said, on the basis of districts, and Kissinger said, there is no American reason why the Turks should not have 1/3 of Cyprus. In July, August 74, NATO's coup and invasion created an apartheid Cyprus. We are now in the 51st year of the Turkish and NATO occupation of Cyprus. An occupation that has lasted for more than half a century continues in Cyprus. There are two such long-lasting occupations in the modern era: the occupation of Palestine and the occupation of Cyprus. For half a century, negotiations have been conducted in Cyprus under the guise of peace talks. The United Nations has devised numerous peace and solution plans. But what is the problem that requires a solution plan? Who is the peace plan intended to bring together? And why are the peace talks continuing? Turkey has occupied the Republic of Cyprus and seeks to impose its fait accompli on the occupied territories, just as Israel has done. Turkey has occupied 37% of Cyprus, forcibly displaced the local population, established permanent settlements on the occupied territories, and colonized them by transferring settlers from Turkey. The United Nations so-called peace and solution talks are imposing these war crimes committed by Turkey on the Cypriot people under occupation and the Republic of Cyprus. For half a century, the United Nations has been making plans to destroy the Republic of Cyprus, which is a member of the United Nations. This is also an irony in the history of the United Nations. For half a century, plans have been made to destroy a sovereign state and legalize war crimes. At the core of these plans lies two statehood: an apartheid system based on homogeneous ethnic regions imposed as a fait accompli of Turkish occupation, the legalization of Turkey's settler colonialism, which has been sustained for half a century through land grabs and the transfer of settler populations. The Republic of Cyprus is currently a member of both the United Nations and the European Union. Today, the United Nations is trampling on international agreements against apartheid and human rights agreements in order to legitimize the occupation of Cyprus. The European Union, on the other hand, is financing Turkey, which has occupied the Republic of Cyprus, a member of 21 years, primarily through EU funds, trade, refugee issue, and military cooperation. Turkey is occupying a country that is member of the European Union, and the European Union is financing Turkey. At the beginning of my speech, I mentioned 3 dates that are milestones in the history of Cyprus. The 1821 uprising against Ottomans, the 1931 uprising against the British colonialism. 1974 marks the beginning of the process of exterminating the rebellious Cypriot people. All social, cultural, demographic, and the class structures are disrupted by the Turkish occupation and settler colonialism. The Turkish occupation brings with it a new form of settler colonialism, the elimination of the indigenous population and the transfer of settlers from Turkey. The Turkish occupation first forcibly displaced 200,000 Cypriots. It established an apartheid system based on ethnically homogeneous regions. It then implemented a settler colonialism project based on land seizure, colonization, and population transfer. After 1974, Turkey systematically established a racist apartheid regime. First, Greek Cypriots, Maronites, and Armenians were expelled from their homes. In 1975, the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a directive to move settlers to Cyprus. According to this directive, families resettled in Cyprus must be Turkish citizens, and their mother tongue must be Turkish. Settler colonization seeks to Turkify Cyprus. When Turkey began illegally settling the people in the occupied part of Cyprus in 1975, the properties were not empty. Approximately 20,000 Greek Cypriots had remained in their homes. After 50 years of ethnic cleansing, only about 300 remain today. Turkey has occupied 37% of the sovereign territory of the Republic of Cyprus. To perpetuate this occupation, it has systematically committed crimes under the Geneva Convention and the Rome Statute. The first of these crimes is the crime of forced displacement and settler population transfer. The second is the crime of unlawful and arbitrary destruction and the seizure of property. The basis of Turkey's usurpation of land in Cyprus is the construction of settlements and the transfer of population to the occupied territory, which are war crimes according to the Geneva Convention and the Roma Statute. However, the issue doesn't stop with these war crimes. There are 2 other pillars of land usurpation: money laundering, defined as transnational organized crime, and infiltration of legal business to launder money. Both are directly linked to land usurpation. Building on usurped land is part of the trafficking, drugs, money laundering cycle. Today, the part of Cyprus that's occupied by Turkey is the hub for the Turkish mafia and its international partners. It is safe haven for international criminals wanted by Interpol. In the 90s, casinos that were shut down in Turkey moved to the occupied part of Cyprus, and the occupied area was turned into an offshore banking center for laundering dirty money. Today, the same function is being performed by online betting and gambling sites. In the occupied region of Cyprus, areas such as money laundering, drug trafficking, human trafficking, arms trafficking, smuggling of goods, online betting and gambling, surrogacy, and sex slavery are prominent. This occupied zone, created by NATO in 1974, is today a black hole for international capitalism and a hidden treasure for Turkish capitalism. Land usurpation or settler colonialism in Cyprus is not only war crimes and crimes against humanity. Settler colonialism is also serious transnational crime. The settlements built on the usurped land are funded with black money of unknown origin. That's why Cyprus matters. Let's get to the most recent developments. Recently, the Zionists land accusations, synagogues, schools, and gated communities in Cyprus have been in the world press. This issue has no direct connection with 7th October and the Gaza genocide. Zionists began arriving in Cyprus approximately 20 years ago. There is only one state in Cyprus, the Republic of Cyprus. 37% of it is under Turkish occupation. Zionists first came to the area under Turkish occupation, purchasing land seized by Turkish settlers and building settlements. The Turkish occupation regime uses the sale of land to the foreigners, mainly Israelis, to destabilize the Cyprus issue. Zionists then entered the area under the control of Republic of Cyprus government as investors. There are two factors that have let the elites of the Republic of Cyprus allow Zionists to purchase land and establish gated communities. The first is integration with capitalism, class collaboration, comprador characters of elites, and the issue of processing and transporting natural gas in the Eastern Mediterranean. The other is the exploitation of the security problem created by the Turkish occupation. Unable to comprehend the historical alliance between Turkey, the first Muslim state to recognize Israel, the Cypriot elite act on the assumption that Israel will defend Cyprus against Turkish occupiers. Thus, by exploiting the climate of fear created by Turkish occupation in Cyprus, the settler colonial genocidal regime of Israel is expanding its dominance in the region. In addition, the Turkish occupation of Cyprus provides a basis for the legitimation of British, American, and French bases under the guise of security issue. While the Zionist presence in Cyprus is much broader issue, what is important and needs to be emphasized here is that the Turkish occupation of Cyprus and the entry of Zionism into Cyprus are intervened and mutually reinforcing processes. At the same time, the Turkish occupation of Cyprus and the military bases of the United States, France, and Britain are complementary processes. It is part of imperialism's policy of holding Cyprus as unsinkable aircraft carrier. This is why Cyprus independence is of vital importance to the peoples of West Asia and North Africa. Why does Cyprus matter? Firstly, it serves imperialism as unsinkable aircraft carrier. Secondly, the war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Cyprus are a common problem for humanity. Unpunished crimes are repeated. Thirdly, the settler colonialism in Cyprus is not only a crime against humanity, but also part of transnational organized crime based on dirty money. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aziz. Thank you so much. It was very informative, and I learned a lot too. Although I'm trying to read the history of Cyprus, and there's a lot to cover there. And thank you for your great presentation. So before we go to the next segment, I would like to say that next, I'd like to remind that we have another session coming next Sunday. That's on August 3rd. That's going to be on the issue of California Bill AB 715 on anti-Semitism. So during our times when every free speech, every expression, opinion against an ongoing genocide is labeled as anti-Semitism by the fascists, this will be a very informative and thought-provoking session. Our guest is going to be Marcy Winograd, and so we expect you to please join next week also and contribute to the discussion. For the QA session that's going to follow, I'd like to remind you once again that to please respect the time of our speaker and other participants by limiting yourself to 2 minutes for either the questions or comments. And please stick to one question at a time on the subject to allow the speaker to respond, if possible. So with that, I am already seeing 2 hands up, and I'm going to go with that, with Mike H. Can you please unmute yourself if you can, and go ahead, please, Mike.
Okay, I think I unmuted. So my question is something that I'm really having challenges wrapping my head around, and that's the Russians that came out of Russia in the 90s that moved to Israel. Apparently, some of them are involved in some of these money laundering networks. And then I've also heard that a lot of Russian money went into Cyprus, but now many of those Russians that invested in Cyprus are investing in the north to secure their investment in the case of sanctions. So I'm trying to see how the Russians who moved to Israel, who may be involved in international crime gangs, are connected with the Russians that are in Cyprus. And where the
Thank you.
invested, how the money's being moved around.
Thank you. Aziz, go ahead, please.
I don't know if the Russians in Israel and the Russians in Cyprus are the same and connected. The point is, the Russians are in Cyprus moved from south to north, from north to south during the fight between US, European Union, and Russia. First of all, Russians based in Limassol in government control area in South Cyprus. Beginning of 2000s until 2008, the Euro crisis, the third depression when started, the European Union started an attack against Russians in Cyprus, and they kicked Russians out of Cyprus government control area to occupied area. Russians are still in Cyprus, but they changed their positions. But I don't know the information that after the Soviet Union collapsed, the Russians moved to Israel. Are they same in Cyprus or not? I have no evidence about it and no information.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Let's go to Raj. Raj, go ahead, please. Unmute yourself and continue.
Aziz, thank you for your presentation. I learned a lot about Cyprus history, so thank you. I wanted to ask you, Modi of India visited. You're a journalist. You must have covered that or read about it in Cyprus. What has happened is that Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Pakistan, there was in recent clash between India and Pakistan, Azerbaijan and Turkey were supporting Pakistan. Turkey actually supplied drones, which was used by Pakistan against India. And Modi in Indian government has been boosting its relationship with Cyprus, and they also have some defense things going on. I've read it in the Indian papers. I want to see what you know about it, and what can you tell us from a Cyprus point of view, from a left Cyprus point of view. Thank you.
The relations between Azerbaijan and Israel, there is a big irony. Azerbaijan is a Turkish state, and Turkey is a Turkish state, and Turkey occupied north of Cyprus, and Azerbaijan and Israel is now comrades, and at the same time, Turkey tries to show that Turkey is against Israel, but Turkey is the third or fourth economical supporter of Israel. The point for me, the most important point, is Cypriots' non-alignment policy is broke down. Cyprus supports today, Cypriot government supports today Israel, and tries to see a support against Turkey, but it will never happen. At the same time, Modi and India, Israel, Cyprus is staying at the same line, and against this line, we see Azerbaijan, we see Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Pakistan. But Azerbaijan supports Israel. The point, we cannot have a clear picture. My problem is Cyprus government lost the non-alignment of Cyprus, and Cyprus became more dangerous place for Cypriots. We don't need to be involved India, Pakistan problem. We don't need to be involved Azerbaijan, Israel, Turkey relations. We need to be independent, and we have to have in non-allied policy. But in today's world and in the changing world and the changing elites of Cyprus have new policies, and their new policies make everything more dangerous. Thank you. I think I couldn't answer, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your response.
Yeah, I'm going to call myself if possible. Aziz, thank you. There are a lot of information that points that the scare of losing the control for British and then for US of Cyprus was grounded, as you mentioned, in fighting against communism. They thought that the Russians would be coming down immediately to the Mediterranean, to the warm seas, and this and that. And even when Cyprus wanted to, was a part of the non-aligned movements, that was taken as a threat. Makarios, the Greek archbishop of Cyprus, who was the the prime minister, or was it the head of the state? I don't know. But he was arrested by Britain and sent to Seychelles Islands because he was promoting the non-aligned movement. And then there was a attempt to his life. He escaped very narrowly. And when Turkey, as I understand, I'd like you to clear if I'm right or wrong, but the Turkish Prime Minister Menderes was not very keen on signing the agreements with the Greek Cypriots. He was flying to London, and his plane came down, and he miraculously escaped, but a couple of days later he signed the agreement. So do you think that what was happening was a conspiracy of the British and NATO to keep the island in their hands and even go to these assassination attempts, first of all to Makarios and then to the Turkish prime minister? What do you think?
I think in the first line, the imperialism doesn't want to. First of all, they wanted to try Cyprus as wall to control. Because of that, they offered before the forming of the republic to be NATO member. If it was possible, Cyprus would be the first country formed and became NATO member. But Makarios rejected it and said, we want to be non-aligned. The forming process of Cyprus Republic is what you say, Britain going to lose Cyprus. We had only 4 years guerrilla war. 55, 59. It wasn't in Africa, in Latin America, there was longer struggles, and even they couldn't succeed to have a state. In Cyprus, we succeed in 4 years. It was, I think we can say, easy, because Britain thought, I will take my bases and left the Cypriots alone, then I know they will fight, because the divide and rule policy started. When it starts, it will never end. That's why Britain's first line was to secure its bases. The point for Turkey, in Turkey there was 27th May junta before the Cyprus Republic formed. The point that our view about this issue, what we read, documents, our historical information is the NATO's Gladio has been stopped during the junta, and the juntas, they say left-wing junta for 27th May. The left-wing junta sent an ambassador to Cyprus. He was a Cypriot, and this guy said that when he came, my job is to this state will alive. Our policy is that you cannot divide this land this state has to be stand its own legs. And he had fights with Denktash. This Turkish ambassador was Emin Dirwana. The junta sent him to Cyprus to fight for Cyprus Republic against ethnicism, and he was a supporter of left-wing Republicans in that period in Cyprus against Denktash leadership. There was a point that 27th junta and Denktash leadership, Turkish Cypriot leadership, came against, how can I say, face to face or head to head. They were against each other. When it changed, when the junta leadership changed, the policy turned again the old way to divide Cyprus and unification with Turkey. You are right. There was a fight that a wing of the fractions doesn't want to form Cyprus Republic, and the other fraction wants to form the republic, and the 27th junta was for the republic. And Menderes, when they discuss Menderes, about the Menderes, they say the NATO's Gladio means Menderes. That's why the junta, when junta came to the power, they were against these soldiers under the umbrella of NATO's Gladio. I hope I could answer that.
No, that was good. Thank you. I would encourage people to ask questions by raising your hands in Zoom, and you can do that by going down to the Zoom window to the React and clicking on the raise hands. And I have waiting here first Alan and then Richard Wright. Alan, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Aziz. I learned a tremendous amount from your presentation. Thank you very much. My question involves Cyprus's role in supporting the Israeli military and the U.S. military in its attacks against Iran, Lebanon, and the Palestinians and Yemen. Can you speak specifically to how Cyprus is involved with this? How significant is it? And something that is very puzzling to me is the support originating from the Turkish side or the Cypriot side for Israel militarily? Thank you.
Cyprus doesn't support Israel's U.S. military attacks on Iran and Israel. The attacks are on the ground of British bases. Cypriots doesn't have the rights on the British bases. It is so-called sovereign military bases. Nobody asks Cypriots when they use these bases, when they send warplanes to Israel, when they send warplanes to Iran. Nobody asks to Cypriots. That's the point. We won't kick this British out, then they cannot use these bases. This is the point.
None of the military activities in support of Israel are taking place on the Turkish side, and also has the Cypriot government raised protests about the British use of the bases in support of the Zionist attacks?
In occupied area, there isn't any connection with Israel's military support, but in Turkey, there is in Malatya, Kürecik base that secures Israel. And it is interesting, there is Kürecik base in Malatya in Turkey. There is another base in Trodos, and they are working together, the British base, to secure Israel, to secure US in the area, US soldiers in the area. But Cypriot government and Cyprus state doesn't involve with that. Cypriots doesn't have any rights on the ground of military bases of British.
Is there a protest movement on the Cypriot side about this? You know, the British involvement?
Yes, there are big movement against for Palestinian struggle to support Palestinians, and at the same time against the British. But the point is, I can go to 25 years ago. You know, there is a party in Cyprus, AKEL, so-called Communist Party. When we ask them, why don't you speak about British bases in Cyprus? Their answer is, we have Turkish occupation. Turkish occupation secures military bases in Cyprus, in British bases, because they think if we fight against British, if we try to kick British out of Cyprus, Britain will support Turkey more and more against us. That's why we have to be neutral against Britain and try to take some support. It is stupid, but it try to take some support from Britain against Turkey. British imperialism was always pro-Turkish in Cyprus. But the mentality is that it has changed after Makarios. And the elites of Cyprus changed. That's why they are thinking that even so-called communists, that we don't want to speak against British bases because Britain can support us in peace talks against Turkey. That's the point. Turkish occupation secures British bases, US involvement in Cyprus, Israeli involvement, now French base. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alan and Aziz. I have now Richard Wright, and then I have Janet and Citizen waiting in the queue. Go ahead, Richard, please.
Yep. Thank you for a rather complicated presentation. I'm going to have to. I know nothing about Cyprus, so so this is. Well, I won't say nothing, but first off, I guess my question is this. It looks like there's it looks like there's a split between U.S. interests and the Western European, in particular, the English and the French and German interests. And I guess I'm wondering is that at all reflected, or how does that impact the situation on Cyprus? And I have an aside on this, as far as snarky aside. Does Donald Trump have any golf courses on Cyprus? Thank you. Well, I'm just saying.
I know. Go ahead, Aziz.
They don't have any conflict of interest in Cyprus. All of them supports Turkish occupation. That's so simple. US supports Turkish occupation. The European different countries, even France is so friendly to Cyprus in the picture, but in the reality, Britain, Germany's historical, strategical friend of Turkey, all of them supports Turkish occupation. That's why they don't have any conflict of interest in Cyprus. All of them has their bases in Cyprus now. All of them are happy.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I have Janet. Janet, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Aziz, for your very informative presentation. I lost connection a couple of times during it, so forgive me if I'm bringing up some things that you've already talked about. Since the recent attacks on Israel, it is my understanding that many Israelis have been investing, I don't know if it's many, but Israelis have been investing in land in Cyprus and fleeing there. I'm assuming this is northern Cyprus, but I might be wrong. Is Israel interested in Cyprus being a part of its Greater Israel project? And are Zionists actually just settling there? So anyway, I'd appreciate your talking about that. And also, it's my understanding that Cyprus was divided between Greece and Turkey, and that what you describe as Cyprus, I associate with Greek Cyprus. In any case, could you clarify the Greek presence there and more? And also, would you talk about the indigenous Cypriots, who they were prior to the Ottoman and Greek presence, and something about the Cypriot, the unique Cypriot culture? I know I've brought up a lot, but thank you.
First of all, I am indigenous Cypriot. Secondly, Cyprus is not divided between Turkey and Greece. Greece has a symbolic soldiers in Cyprus. Technically, in 1960, Cyprus Republic formed with three guarantors: Turkey, Greece, and Britain. And Britain took its bases, and Turkey brought Cyprus 650 soldiers, and Greece brought Cyprus 950 soldiers. That's all. After all, with NATO's paramilitary terrorist organizations, they opened the way of invasion, and in 1974, Turkey occupied Republic of Cyprus. Republic of Cyprus has nothing with Greece. It is an occupied independent country, occupied by Turkey, but it governs by Cypriots. I don't know how many soldiers are there, Greek soldiers are there, but it is symbolic. In occupied area of Cyprus, there are 40,000 Turkish soldiers. The indigenous people, Cypriots in occupied area, are maybe 50,000, but the Turkish soldiers are 40,000. You can think about it. The point you asked me, the Israelis didn't come to the occupied area. Israelis flee to the free areas, Cyprus government control areas, but not all of them stayed in Cyprus. After that, part of them fled again to Europe, where they came, to Poland, to Ukraine, to Germany, to France. But a part of Israelis are settling in Cyprus, and they are building gated communities, and we are aware of the issue of Zionist problem, we had enough problems. We had Turkish colonization, we had British colonization, British occupation. Now we have Zionist problem. We are aware of that, but your question is that they don't come to the occupied area, they flee to the free areas. If I understand the question right.
And when you say settling, you mean purchasing, or do you mean just taking, stealing?
They are buying the land. Not yet, they are not yet stealing, but we are waiting about to see it.
And that's how it started in Palestine also, first by purchasing and then taking over. Yeah, thank you, Janet and Aziz. So next we are going to Citizen. Please unmute yourself and go ahead with the topic.
Yes, Janet usually asks interesting questions from what I've heard, and that's probably why she asked a version of my upcoming question. I just want to say that your presentation was very interesting. This is an issue that I don't know enough about, so I really appreciate hearing your presentation. So I will ask my version of a question that Janet asked, and I understand, I don't know if it's correct or not, but I understand that there has been indeed a huge influx of Israelis to Cyprus since 10/7. I've heard it called the New Israel. So I'd like to know if that's true, if there has been a huge influx of Israelis to Cyprus. And I'd like you to respond to the latest Turkish criticism, if any, against Israel since Israel's commencing continued US-backed genocide. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Aziz. Thank you.
I didn't understand the question.
Oh, let me ask it again.
Oh,
I'll be brief. Has there been a huge influx of Israelis to Cyprus since 10/7? I've heard it called the New Israel. And can you respond to the latest, if any, Turkish criticism against Israel since Israel's commencing continued US-backed genocide?
You mean Turkish criticism from Turkey or occupied area?
You can respond to either. Oh, and let me, if I may interject, Alan made a very interesting comment in the chat. He said the situation as far as opposition to NATO bases seems analogous to that in Okinawa. So I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was an interesting parallel. I hope that doesn't disrupt my question.
Rhetorically, the Turkish side, the occupation regime, and Turkey criticizes Israel, but technically they love Israel. It is so simple. Turkey has deep relations with Israel and nothing to do that they are buying lands or colonizing Cyprus. Turkey doesn't have any problems. In occupied area of Cyprus, Turkey sold out lands to the Israelis. Now in Cyprus, the Cyprus government arrested an Israeli, and an Israeli construction boss is in prison, named as Simon Aykut. He made more than 10,000 houses in occupied area on the stolen land of Greek Cypriots. Turkey occupied North Cyprus, settled settlers from Turkey, and these Turkish settlers sold Greek Cypriots land to this Israeli guy. He has at the same time Israeli citizenship and Turkish citizenship. He is Turkish Jew, and this guy is a famous construction boss in Cyprus. He stole lands of Greek Cypriots. He is now in prison of Cyprus Republic because of stealing lands of Greek Cypriots. And the Turkish government, Turkey, even Recep Tayyip Erdogan's vice president, the helper, the second man of Erdogan, spoke that we will reply this arrest. They support their construction, Israeli construction bosses who are investing in occupied area. And even Turkey sold this land to Israelis. This is the point. In occupied area of Cyprus, everything controlled by Turkish army, and without knowledge of Turkish army, you cannot do anything, you cannot sell lands, and Turkey sold out lands to the Israeli construction companies' bosses. The rhetoric of anti-Israeli rhetoric of Turkey is only a show. They love each other.
And has there been a huge influx of Israelis since 10/7?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before we go on, let me just update. Just recently, some Greek Cypriots whose land was confiscated or taken away by the Turkish side went to court to get their properties back and to document that the land and the property belonged to them. They came and they just wanted to visit and take maybe photographs for the court, and they are now all under arrest by the Turkish side, being charged with espionage. So they are being treated like spies just because they came to take photographs of their old, properties. So that shows the events. So anyway, let's go to Jean. Jean, please unmute yourself and go ahead, please.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Okay, well, I want to thank our speaker for his talk, but I have to confess that I'm really having a hard time wrapping my head around Cyprus and what's going on there. And, I tried and last night, understanding my deficiencies in these areas, I read the Wikipedia on Cyprus, which was not all that enlightenment. So I still have a hard time figuring this out. And part of my reason is that I'm a member of Veterans for Peace, which is an educational humanitarian organization dedicated to the abolishment of war. And we had no trouble denouncing U.S. bombing of Iran and U.S. troops putting down immigration activists in the United States. But I'm really having a hard time trying to figure out, well, what should our position as Veterans for Peace be towards what is happening in Cyprus, in terms of U.S. involvement there, and just what we can say about Cyprus, or what our position should be on U.S. involvement in this area. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you can answer, that would be great. Your reaction would be appreciated. Thank you.
The U.S. involvement to the peace talks, you mean? United Nations
in the dispute, what's going on there, the violence and so forth, because one of the things, we have to recognize that, the victims in any war are not, not the combatants on one side or other, but
you mean during the war in 74?
Yeah. No, at the present
there isn't any U.S. involvement. U.S. was Turkish army and Greek army.
Okay, thank you.
No, I think, Aziz, what he means is that what should we say about US's presence there as NATO, or what is happening there? What should we do about the US's presence in the island?
Thank you.
Now I understood. During the Biden period, first time they opened a military base in Larnaca for Marines. When the Marines to transport Marines from war zones to the warships. For that, they built a small military base in Larnaca. But US uses British bases in Cyprus, and I think US technically doesn't need Cyprus. US have military base in Turkey, military base everywhere in the region, in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia. The presence, military presence of US imperialism in Cyprus is not so big, but ideologically, US imperialism dominates everything in Cyprus. That is the point. The elites of Cyprus has been educated by US imperialism from 80s to today by conflict resolution workshops. For example, the military presence is not everything. The ideological, cultural hegemony of US is another power. And what you can do for Cyprus is, first of all, aware of that from the beginning of, from the Acheson, from the Johnson, President Johnson, to Acheson, to Kissinger, Cyprus, occupation of Cyprus created by US imperialism. First, aware of that, then we can find a way to discuss what can we do in the US for Cyprus.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And so now we are going to Judith. Judith, go ahead, please. Judith, if you can unmute yourself. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, finally. Okay, thanks. All right, I'm sorry. I did miss most of your talk. What I would like to know is the culture of Cyprus. Do the Turkish and the indigenous Cypriots intermingle? Is there intermarriage? Do they hang out together? Are there any groups that transcend the ethnicity and form political groups together? What are the social classes? What is the difference in class structure between the Cypriots and the Turks? Is the food different? And where does Cyprus get its oil and gas? And is there a Chinese presence in Cyprus? That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Aziz.
First of all, in Cyprus, we have yes, there is. The question is if there is mixed marriages between Turks and Cypriots. Yes, there are. But the point is, and we have a settler colonialism problem. This is the point. Turkey occupied Cyprus. Most of first of all, the Christian Cypriots expelled from occupied area. Then half of the Turkish Cypriots left the country. Now we are 50,000. Technically, when Turkey occupied Cyprus, we were 110,000 people. Now we are approximately 50,000 people, and the occupied areas population is nearly 1.5 million. In 1.5 million, we are 50,000 people. We cannot speak a sociological combination. The Cypriots mostly tries to secure them, but the point is the Turkish. We are speaking Turkish. Turkey speak Turkish. This is our point that Turkey has the biggest cultural hegemony on us, and the point that every day from Turkey they transfer population to Cyprus, and the mixed marriages is normal, and this Turkish policy of assimilation is assimilation and integration to Turkey is systematical from the beginning of 74 to today. Turkey assimilated the most of the indigenous people in occupied area, and there are mixed marriages too. But I can say that the politics is dominated by Turkey. We don't have indigenous politics in occupied area. Everything is settlers, controlled by Turkey, and the point that the socio-cultural mix the socio-cultural how can I say?
It's a hard thing, and also there are limits of borders if you can cross and each way. I think there's going to be problems. Well, what I'd like to say is that I know we have 2 more hands, but everybody who spoke and asked the first time, they did, and now the second round, but we have come to the end of the program. We've already passed 12 o'clock. I wrote in the chat about a very good book. It's called The Cyprus Conspiracy. In Turkish, it's like this. I would really suggest everybody to get it and read it. But this has been a great session. Thank you, Aziz, for informing us of what's going on. Nobody knows much about what's there, but the most important thing we have to understand is that British Britain used Cyprus to attack Suez, to attack other Arab countries, and they were planning on bringing their Middle East headquarters, they have something like that, to Cyprus, to control everything from the Cyprus bases. And now that it is the US controlling NATO and the bases there, then I believe that task has been shifted to the US to control the area from that point. So anyway, Aziz, thank you very much. It has been really very informative. I think we all learned a lot, and we need to read more and learn more about it. But Cyprus is central to Mediterranean and the Middle East, and we have to understand that. And thank you for opening the subject to us. So everybody, thank you for participating and coming in for the discussion. I hope to see you all next week, and have a nice week, and we'll see you next Sunday at 10:30. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everyone.
Contact information.